Every year, people dismiss Halloween as harmless fun, costumes, candy, carved pumpkins. But some Halloweens don't end when the decorations come down. The 3 recordings you're about to hear were recovered from different sources: a phone found in a parking lot, a voice memo uploaded to cloud storage from a deleted account, and security footage audio extracted by investigators. The owners, 2 are missing. 1 refuses to speak about that night. What connects them is simple: they all thought they were safe. They were wrong. This happened 2 years ago on Halloween night, 2023. My name is Marcus Hayes, and I was 22 years old at the time. I worked as a community center coordinator, and that particular Halloween had been brutal. We'd hosted our annual festival, costume contests, dodgeball tournaments, candy competitions. Parents brought their kids in waves, and by the time everything wrapped up around 5:30, I was completely drained. Every muscle ached. My voice was hoarse from announcing winners and breaking up arguments over game rules. All I wanted was to go home, collapse on my couch, and pretend the outside world didn't exist for the next 12 hours. I lived alone in a small apartment across town, and the drive home felt longer than usual. Traffic crawled because of trick-or-treaters flooding the sidewalks. I watched families moving from house to house, kids shrieking with excitement, parents trailing behind with tired smiles. It all felt distant to me, like watching a movie through a window. I made it home by 6:15, kicked off my shoes, and was halfway through changing into sweatpants when my phone rang. My little sister Savannah's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. I knew what she wanted before she even spoke. "Marcus, hey. So, Mom and Dad are being super lame and won't take Jackson trick-or-treating. His parents bailed too. Can you please take us? Just for like an hour, please?" Jackson was my 11-year-old nephew, Savannah's kid from a relationship that ended badly. At 15, Savannah was too young to drive and too proud to beg, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. Jackson only got one childhood, one Halloween at 11 years old. If I said no, he'd spend the night watching TV while his friends collected pillowcases full of candy. I sighed. "Give me 20 minutes. I'll be there." "You're the best. I love you." I changed back into jeans and a hoodie, grabbed my backpack, more out of habit than anything else, and headed to my parents' house. The backpack wasn't empty. I'd been carrying a Glock 19 for about 6 months, ever since a guy tried to mug me in a parking lot downtown. I had my concealed carry permit, and the weight of the gun had become so familiar I barely noticed it anymore. Savannah knew I carried. My parents didn't. Jackson definitely didn't. When I arrived, Savannah was still adjusting her costume. She'd gone as Raven from Teen Titans, purple wig, dark cape, white face makeup that gave her an almost ghostly appearance. She looked genuinely cool. Jackson wore a blue and black ninja costume with a mask that covered half his face. "Sub-Zero," he announced proudly, striking a pose. "Looks awesome, buddy. You guys ready?" We piled into my car, and I drove them to Maplewood Heights, a neighborhood about 15 minutes away. Maplewood was the place to trick-or-treat. Big houses, wealthy families, full-size candy bars. The streets were packed with kids and parents, porch lights glowing gold and orange, inflatable decorations swaying in the breeze. For the next hour and a half, we walked from house to house. Jackson ran ahead, Savannah trailing behind him, and I hung back, hands in my pockets, watching. People were friendly. One old man was grilling hot dogs in his driveway and handed them out instead of candy, saying kids needed protein, not just sugar. Jackson thought it was weird, but ate it anyway. The neighborhood was alive with energy. Zombies, witches, superheroes, vampires. Every costume you could imagine. Somebody had set up a full graveyard scene in their front yard with fog machines and motion-activated jump scares. Jackson loved it. Savannah pretended to be unimpressed, but smiled when she thought I wasn't looking. By 8:30, their bags were heavy, and the crowds were thinning. We'd walked pretty far from where I parked, maybe 10 or 11 blocks. I told them we'd hit one more street and then head back. They agreed, tired but satisfied. That's when I saw her. We were walking along Sycamore Drive, passing a house with no porch light. The yard was dark, and the driveway was empty, but standing in the grass maybe 30 feet from the sidewalk was a person. At first I thought it was a decoration, one of those life-size Halloween props people put out to scare kids, but then I realized it was moving, slightly, shifting weight from one foot to the other. The person was dressed entirely in black, a hooded cloak that hung down to their knees, black pants, black boots. I couldn't see their face. It was either covered by a mask or hidden in shadow, and they were looking at us. I was sure of it. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Something about the way they stood there, motionless but aware, set off every instinct I had. This wasn't someone handing out candy. This wasn't a parent watching their kid. This was something else. "Stay close to me," I said quietly. "Both of you." "What's wrong?" Savannah asked, her voice tight with concern. "There's someone across the street. Don't stare, but look." Jackson laughed. "Probably just someone trying to scare people. It's Halloween, Marcus." "Yeah, maybe," I said, but I didn't believe it. We kept walking and I glanced back over my shoulder. The figure hadn't moved, still standing in that dark yard, watching. I tried to tell myself Jackson was right. People did weird things on Halloween, but the longer I thought about it, the less sense it made. If you're trying to scare kids, you jump out. You make noise. You don't just stand there in silence. We turned the corner, heading back toward my car. The street was quieter now. Most families had gone home. The few people we passed were adults, walking quickly, ready to be done with the night. I kept checking behind us. Nothing. The figure was gone. I relaxed a little. Maybe I had been paranoid. Maybe it was just someone in a costume. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, the sound of boots hitting pavement. I turned around and my stomach dropped. It was the same person. Same black cloak. Same dark outfit. But now I could see details I hadn't noticed before. A tactical vest under the cloak. Military-style boots with reinforced toes. Black cargo pants tucked into the boots. And a full face covering. A black spandex mask that left no skin visible. They were following us, and they weren't trying to hide it. "Marcus?" Savannah's voice was shaking. "Listen to me very carefully," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "Do not stop walking. Do not look back. That person is following us. I don't know why, but we need to get to the car. Stay calm. Stay together." Jackson's face went pale. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "Walk. Now." We moved faster, not quite running, but close. I kept glancing over my shoulder. The figure matched our pace, staying about 20 feet behind us. They didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just followed, like they were herding us. My car was parked 3 blocks away. It felt like 3 miles. When we finally reached it, I unlocked the doors and moved to the driver's side, putting myself between the kids and the figure. My hand went to my backpack, fingers brushing the grip of my Glock. The figure stopped about 15 feet away, just stood there, watching. I pulled the gun out, keeping it low but visible. "Why are you following us?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the figure raised both hands, palms out, like they were surrendering. They reached up and pulled off the mask. It was a woman, mid-30s maybe, short dark hair, pale skin. She stared at me with no expression, like her face was made of wax. "Why are you following us?" I asked again, louder this time. Her voice was flat, monotone. "I'm an undercover cop. There was a report of a break-in on this street. I was investigating when you looked at me. I thought you might be involved. Lower your weapon, or I can have you arrested for threatening an officer." I didn't lower the gun. Something about her story didn't add up. If she was investigating a break-in, why was she standing in a yard staring at us? Why was she wearing a tactical vest under a Halloween cloak? And why would she follow us instead of identifying herself immediately? "If you're undercover," I said slowly, "why are you dressed like that? Tactical gear isn't exactly subtle." She didn't answer, just stared at me. And then her expression changed. Her mouth curved into a smile. Not a friendly smile, a cold, predatory smile. "If you didn't have that gun," she said quietly, "this night would have ended very differently for you." Before I could respond, I saw movement in my peripheral vision. 4 figures stepped out from between the houses. 2 men, 2 women, all wearing tactical vests, black pants, black boots, no masks, no expressions. They moved toward us in perfect silence, like shadows given form. "Get in the car," I said to Savannah and Jackson. "Now." They scrambled into the back seat. I kept my gun trained on the woman as I backed toward the driver's door. She didn't move, just kept smiling that horrible, empty smile. I got in, started the engine, and peeled out of the parking spot. In the rearview mirror, saw the 5 figures standing in the street, watching us leave. The woman was still smiling, Nobody spoke on the drive back. Savannah was crying quietly. Jackson stared out the window, pale and shaking. I didn't trust my voice not to crack, so I stayed silent. I dropped them off at my parents' house and made sure they got inside safely. Then I sat in my car for 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? I pulled a gun on someone who claimed to be a cop? I had no proof. No witnesses except 2 scared kids. I drove home and locked every door and window. I barely slept that night. 3 days later, I received a text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. It was a picture of my car, taken from across the parking lot of my apartment complex. I could see my license plate. The angle suggested the photo was taken from a vehicle or someone standing near the entrance. I called the police and told them everything. They took a report, but said they couldn't investigate without a direct threat. A photo of my car wasn't enough. I asked if there had been any reports of people in tactical gear harassing civilians on Halloween. They said no. I went back to the house where I'd first seen the woman. An older man answered the door. I asked if there had been a break-in on Halloween night. He looked confused. No break-in, nothing unusual. He'd gone to bed early because he had work the next morning. I thanked him and left. I already knew the cop's story was a lie. I just needed to confirm it. Whoever those people were, they knew my phone number. They knew where I lived, and they'd been planning something that night. I'm convinced the only reason we made it out was because I was armed. If I hadn't pulled that gun, I don't think we'd be alive. I started going to therapy 2 weeks later. I installed a Ring doorbell. I changed my daily routes to work. I checked my car for tracking devices. For months, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I never received another message, no more photos, no more contact. But I think about that night constantly. I think about the way that woman smiled. I think about those 4 figures stepping out of the darkness like they'd been waiting there all along. And I think about the question that still keeps me up at night. Why us? That neighborhood was full of people, families, kids. Why did they choose us? Was it random? Or had they been watching me before that night? I'll never know. And maybe that's worse than knowing the truth. My name is Emma Castellano, and this happened when I was 12 years old. That was 8 years ago, but I still remember every detail like it happened yesterday. Some things you don't forget, some things you can't. It was Halloween weekend, and my family was staying at a small resort called Pineridge Lodge, about an hour outside the city. My parents wanted to do something different that year instead of just walking around our neighborhood. Pineridge was hosting a Halloween celebration, games, activities, a haunted hayride. It sounded fun, and I was excited. The resort wasn't big, maybe 10 cabins scattered around a central lodge, a small lake, and an open field where they set up the hayride. The whole place was surrounded by dense forest. During the day, it looked peaceful. At night, the woods turned into solid black walls, and the resort felt small and isolated. We checked in on Saturday afternoon. I remember stepping out of the car and smelling campfire smoke and caramel apples. Kids were already running around in costumes even though it wasn't dark yet. There were booths set up near the lodge, ring toss, pumpkin carving, a costume contest. Everything was decorated with orange string lights and fake cobwebs. I met another kid pretty quickly. His name was Ryan. He was about my age, maybe a little older, wearing a skeleton costume that glowed in the dark. He said his family was staying in the cabin next to ours. We spent the afternoon playing games and collecting candy from the booths. By the time it got close to 7, we'd already eaten half of what we'd collected. That's when the hayride started. Everyone gathered near the barn where the tractor was parked. There was a big wagon attached to it, with hay bales set up for seating. Maybe 20 of us climbed on, mostly families with younger kids. The driver wore a scarecrow mask, and there were people dressed as zombies, who were supposed to jump out during the ride to scare people. The ride started off exactly like you'd expect. The tractor pulled us down a dirt trail that wound through the woods, and every few minutes, someone in a costume would leap out from behind a tree or run up to the wagon screaming. People would scream back and then laugh. It was corny and fun, but about halfway through, something changed. We were passing through a section of the trail that was darker than the rest. The torches they'd placed along the path were spaced farther apart, and the trees grew thicker here. The tractor slowed down, and I looked toward the edge of the woods on my right. That's when I saw him. A man was standing just outside the circle of torchlight. He wasn't part of the hayride cast. I could tell immediately. He wasn't wearing a costume, at least not one that fit the theme. He had on a black jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. His hands were in his pockets, and he wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. At first, I thought maybe he was a worker taking a break, but something about the way he stood there felt wrong. He wasn't looking at the wagon. He was looking at me. I couldn't see his eyes because of the shadow from the cap, but I felt them, locked on me. I turned to Ryan, who was sitting next to me, but he was laughing at something one of the zombies had done. When I looked back at the man, he was still there. Same position, same stillness. I watched him until the tractor pulled us around a bend and he disappeared from view. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just someone from the resort standing outside. But the feeling didn't go away. The rest of the ride felt off. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see him again. When we finally got back to the barn and everyone climbed off, I turned toward the woods one last time. He was gone. We went back to the lodge where they had more games and food. My parents sat by a bonfire while Ryan and I walked around collecting more candy. The crowd was smaller now. Most of the younger kids had gone back to their cabins. Everything felt normal again. I started to relax. Then I saw him again. Ryan and I were standing near the snack table when I noticed someone off to the side of the crowd. It was the same man. Same black jacket. Same cap. He was standing about 30 feet away near the tree line, and he was watching again. Not moving. Not talking to anyone. Just standing there alone. My stomach tightened. There were at least 50 people around. Families. Kids. Parents. Why was he standing by himself in the dark? I nudged Ryan. That guy over there. Do you see him? Ryan looked. The one by the trees. Yeah. He was in the woods during the hayride. Just standing there. Ryan shrugged. Maybe he works here. He's not wearing a uniform. And why would he be standing out there alone? Ryan didn't have an answer. We both stared for a minute. I tried to get a better look at his face, but the lighting made it hard. I could see he had a short beard and that his cap had some kind of logo on it, but I couldn't make out the details. A few minutes later, he was gone again. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was Halloween. People dressed in weird clothes and acted strange. That was the whole point. By 9 o'clock, most of the little kids had gone to bed. The event was winding down, but Ryan and I still had energy. He suggested we walk around the resort before going in. There was a trail behind the cabins that led into the woods. He wanted to go a little way in, just to do something scary before Halloween ended. I didn't want to go far, but I had a flashlight, and I didn't want Ryan to think I was scared. So we walked down the dirt path together, laughing and daring each other to keep going. The farther we went, the quieter it got. The sounds from the resort faded until all we could hear were our footsteps and the rustling of leaves. We only went about 200 feet in when we stopped near a clearing. There was an old wooden sign nailed to a tree that said, "Private Property." We started throwing small rocks at it, joking about summoning ghosts. Stupid kid stuff. Then we heard footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps coming from somewhere behind us on the path. We froze. Ryan whispered, "Probably just another kid." But it didn't sound like a kid. It sounded like an adult, someone big. I turned my flashlight toward the path. The beam only reached so far. I couldn't see anyone, but the footsteps kept coming. Then they stopped. Complete silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought Ryan could hear it. Then a voice spoke. "Hey there, boys." It was a man's voice. Calm. Almost friendly. But there was something underneath it that made my skin crawl. Ryan looked at me, and I saw the fear in his eyes. We both knew. It was the man from earlier. He stepped into the light. Same black jacket. Same cap. Up close, I could see his face better. He had a short beard, dark eyes, and a strange expression, like he was smiling, but not really. "What are you two doing out here?" he asked. His voice was too calm, too casual. "You like candy?" Neither of us answered. My throat felt like it was closing up. He pulled something out of his pocket and held it up. An orange wrapper, a Reese's peanut butter cup. "I got a bunch more of these back at my cabin," he said. "Come on, I'll give you some." Ryan took a step back. I saw his face go pale. The man took a few steps closer. "You don't have to be scared. It's Halloween. I'm just handing out candy." I saw you boys on the hayride earlier." That's when I grabbed Ryan's arm. "Run." We both turned and sprinted down the path toward the resort. I heard the man behind us, his footsteps pounding hard, fast. He was chasing us. I didn't look back. I just ran. My lungs burned. My legs felt like they were going to give out. The path seemed to go on forever. When we finally broke through the trees and saw the lights from the resort, I screamed for help. A few adults near the bonfire turned toward us, startled. We didn't stop running until we were right next to them. I turned around, expecting to see the man right behind us, but he wasn't there. The path was empty. My parents and Ryan's parents came over immediately. We told them everything. The man on the hayride, seeing him by the trees, him following us into the woods. Ryan's dad and another man grabbed flashlights and went to check the trail, but they didn't find anyone. Resort staff searched too. Nothing. The police arrived about 30 minutes later. They took statements from us and our parents. They searched the property, but didn't find anyone matching the description. No strange vehicles. No one who checked in matching that description. They thought maybe it was a trespasser from outside the resort. We left the next morning. I remember staring out the car window as we drove past the woods, half expecting to see him standing there again, watching. For weeks after that, I kept thinking I saw him on the side of the road, outside stores, once in the school parking lot. But it was always someone else. At least I think it was. Ryan and I stayed in touch for a while. He told me he couldn't sleep for days after it happened. We both had nightmares. Nothing ever came of it. The police never called again. The man was never identified, never caught. I'm 20 now, and when I think about that night, what scares me most isn't what he did. It's what he could have done. If we had believed him, if we had followed him to his cabin, I don't think I'd be here to tell this story. Every Halloween since then, whenever I see someone standing alone at the edge of a crowd, I think of him. Sometimes the people who look like they're part of the fun are watching for a different reason. My name is Roger Hastings, and this happened 3 years ago. I'm 29 now, but I was 26 then, working a boring office job with decent pay but zero respect. I was the new guy, which meant I got stuck with all the shifts nobody else wanted, especially around holidays. When Halloween rolled around that year, I was actually excited. Halloween has always been my favorite holiday. I love the atmosphere, the decorations, the way the whole neighborhood transforms. And that year, I was finally living on my own, a small house on the outskirts of town. It wasn't isolated exactly. I had neighbors. But the street was quiet, and once trick-or-treating hours ended, it got really quiet. My girlfriend was out of town visiting her parents, so I was alone. I didn't mind. I'd planned to hand out candy until the kids stopped coming, then settle in for a horror movie marathon. Simple, relaxing. Halloween fell on a Saturday that year. The weather was perfect, chilly but clear. By 10:30, I hadn't seen a trick-or-treater in over an hour. I was sprawled on the couch, halfway through The Conjuring 2, picking through a bowl of leftover candy when I heard a faint knock at the side door. The side door led to the driveway. Most trick-or-treaters came to the front, but occasionally you'd get stragglers who didn't know any better. I got up, flicked on the porch light, and opened the door. Nobody there, just the empty driveway and the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. I shrugged it off. Kids played pranks on Halloween all the time. Ding Dong Ditch was practically a tradition. I went back to the couch and restarted the movie. 15 minutes later, I heard it again. This time, it was coming from the back door, the door that led to the small deck overlooking my backyard. That stopped me cold. Nobody used that door. Nobody even knew it was there unless they'd walked around the house. I muted the TV and listened. Silence. Then I heard it. The faint metallic rattle of the doorknob being tested. Slowly, carefully, my heart started pounding. I stood up and crept toward the kitchen, staying low. That's when I saw him. Through the window next to the back door, I could see a man crouched down near the handle. He was wearing dark clothes, black hoodie, jeans, and a cheap Halloween mask pushed up on top of his head. In his hand, he held a crowbar. He wasn't trying to hide. He was calm, methodical, like he knew I was inside and didn't care. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking, and grabbed my phone. I dialed 911 and whispered as quietly as I could, explaining that someone was trying to break into my house. The operator told me to stay on the line, lock myself somewhere safe, and not to engage. I didn't want to run upstairs and make noise by slamming doors, so I stayed crouched at the top of the stairs leading to the second floor, clutching a kitchen knife I'd grabbed on the way. I whispered updates to the operator, my voice shaking. I peeked down the stairs and saw the man move away from the back door. For a second, I thought maybe he'd given up. Then I heard a faint pop, the sound of a window screen being pried off. He was at the basement window now. "He's at the basement," I whispered into the phone. "He's trying to get in through the basement window." The operator told me officers were already on their way, but on their way felt like forever. Then I heard glass crack. He was breaking the window. My blood went cold. Most burglars don't try to break into a house when they know someone's home. They want easy targets, empty houses. This guy knew I was here, and he was still trying to get in. Minutes felt like hours. The operator kept talking to me, keeping me calm, making sure I was still okay. I could hear footsteps crunching outside. The man was circling the house again. He was testing every entry point, methodical, patient. Then I saw headlights sweep across the blinds. Relief flooded through me as flashing red and blue lights pulled up in front of my house. I heard shouting. The man bolted. I watched through the window as he sprinted across my yard, but he didn't get far. The officers tackled him just past my driveway. I stayed inside until an officer knocked on my door and told me it was safe to come out. My hands were still shaking when I opened the door. One of the cops led me outside, and that's when I saw the man sitting in the back of a patrol car, his hands cuffed behind him. The mask was off now. He looked ordinary, mid-30s maybe. Short hair, blank expression. But it was what the officers found on him that made my stomach turn. The crowbar, duct tape, zip ties, a roll of black plastic sheeting. This wasn't a burglar looking for valuables. This was someone with a plan, and it was something far worse than theft. One of the officers pulled me aside. "You did the right thing by calling immediately," he said. "This guy has a record. We've been looking for him in connection with some other cases. You're lucky you called when you did." I asked what kind of cases. The officer hesitated, then said, "Missing persons." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Missing persons. I thought about what would have happened if the police had been 5 minutes later. If I hadn't heard him at the door. If I'd been asleep. They took my statement and told me I'd need to come down to the station in the next few days to follow up. I agreed, but I barely heard what they were saying. I couldn't stop thinking about the look on that man's face. Blank, emotionless. Like breaking into my house was just another item on his to-do list. The police left around midnight. I locked every door and window, checked them twice, and still couldn't bring myself to go to bed. I sat on the couch with the lights on, staring at the back door, replaying everything in my head. A few weeks later, the police followed up. They told me what they'd found in his backpack. A Colt, .45 handgun, several kitchen knives, rope, plastic sheeting, everything he needed to do something terrible. They didn't tell me what happened in the other cases he was connected to. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. To this day, I hate being home alone on Halloween. It's supposed to be about fun and scares and costumes. But now, whenever I hear footsteps outside or a knock at the door, I think about that night. I think about how close I came. 5 minutes. That's all it would have taken. And I think about the fact that he chose my house. Out of every house on that street, he chose mine. Was it random? Or had he been watching me? Had he seen me alone and decided I was an easy target? I'll never know. And maybe that's the worst part. Not knowing if it was chance or something more deliberate. Not knowing if he's still out there, choosing someone else's door to knock on. All I know is that Halloween will never feel the same again. The decorations, the laughter, the kids in costumes, it all feels like a mask now. And underneath, there's always the possibility that someone is watching, waiting, planning. So if you're home alone this Halloween, lock your doors, check your windows. And if you hear a knock you weren't expecting, don't assume it's harmless. Because sometimes the scariest thing about Halloween isn't the costumes or the stories. It's the people who use the holiday as cover for something much, much darker. These 3 recordings were found within 6 months of each other. Marcus Hayes still carries his firearm everywhere he goes. Emma Castellano refuses to go camping or stay at any resort. Roger Hastings installed a full security system and hasn't handed out Halloween candy since that night. What happened to them wasn't fiction. It wasn't a prank. It was real. And every Halloween somewhere, it's happening again.